According to the whistleblower who exposed the dangerous child mutilation and other gender procedures taking place at the St. Louis Pediatric Transgender Clinic at Washington University, the facility has quietly ceased operations and will be permanently shutting down. Now, this comes following an investigation by Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey into the clinic's abuses after this whistleblower exposed that the center used experimental drugs on minor children and pressured parents into consenting to such drugs for their children. Joining me now to discuss this latest news is Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey. General Bailey, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thanks for having me on, Tony.
Well, this is a very significant story when it comes to the safety of children in your state, and I can't help but say it's got to be related to your investigation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, we've been fighting and winning to protect children from this kind of gender mutilation and woke left-wing experimentation since I took office back in January of 2023. And as you know, this investigation is the first of its kind in this nation. Multi-agency. We've demanded a moratorium on these procedures, worked with our General Assembly to get a bill passed, then successfully defended the bill that prohibits future procedures in the state of Missouri. But the bill had a problem in the sense that it grandfathered in anyone that was any children currently undergoing these kind of dangerous procedures. And so what we're seeing time and time again is the pressure that we've kept on this issue is causing these clinics to shut down permanently. And that's a huge win for the health and safety of children in Missouri.
Now, as you mentioned, this process, once you began this, included the legislature there in Missouri passing a law to ban the practice, which was challenged in court, and you successfully defended that law in court. Could this be something that we begin to see now spreading across the country?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. We feel like we've laid out a blueprint for a trial strategy of how states can fight and win to defend similar legislation enacted in their states. We put the evidence to the test and demonstrated that there was no medicine or science to back up the administration of dangerous, powerful chemicals that alter these young, innocent children's bodies forever. Irreversible surgeries that deny the children the opportunity to enjoy the full spectrum of adulthood. And I approach this from the position that how dare anyone tell these kids that God put them in the wrong body. We know he doesn't make mistakes. So proud of the work that my office has done and proud to pass it on to other states. And we know that there's a case going up to the United States Supreme Court out of Tennessee. I think the states have a compelling interest in protecting children from this kind of left-wing experimentation, and certainly that's what we've done in Missouri.
General Bailey, let me ask you a question. With them quietly closing, could this be an effort to try to stop your probe? Because you have an ongoing investigation. You're still trying to get documents that they have refused to release to you. Could this be that they don't want certain things exposed, which could bring the whole house of cards down nationally, so that they're trying to protect the rest of the industry that's doing this?
I think that's absolutely right. Certainly there's been a pressure campaign after the governor signed the bill prohibiting these procedures in the future. Once the governor signed that into law, there was a pressure campaign against my office to cease the investigations and look back in time. And the point that I make is just because we're preventing wrongdoing going forward doesn't mean we're not still going to fight for justice for the victims of this mutilation industry that have suffered in the past. And moreover, we need to ensure that we have the proper policy positions in place to safeguard against abuses in the future. And that requires looking at what went wrong in the past. So we're not going to let up on this investigation. I'm glad that we're fighting and winning and shutting these clinics down, but we're still going to look back in time and hold wrongdoers accountable.
Well, let me go back to something you just mentioned, General Bailey. So if you expose certain things that they willfully did things knowing that it endangered these children, that could be used in civil lawsuits being taken by victims of this, leading them to greater exposure. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. And one of the best parts of the bill that the General Assembly enacted was they expanded the statute of limitations to 15 years because we know some of the most severe harms from these dangerous and irreversible procedures don't fully mature until later in life. And so giving the victims of this mutilation industry longer to bring their claims is really essential and an enormous deterrent effect against these clinics.
So, I mean, this could be, I know the parallel's not perfect, but when you had the tobacco industry hiding certain information that was detrimental to people, once that was exposed, that's where you saw millions of dollars in lawsuits filed against them, judgments coming against them, essentially crippling the tobacco industry.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it also enacted, it was a forcing function for industry-wide transformative change. And that's what we seek in this investigation and in our pursuit of these documents. And we're not going to be stonewalled. We've won at the trial court level against many of these other clinics, and we'll continue fighting any clinic that tries to thwart the state's effort to look back in time and determine what kind of abuses occurred.
I know, General Bailey, this would be asking you to speculate somewhat, but I think you've seen enough now to have a good anticipation of what you might find if you're able to press forward and get the documents. What are you hoping to learn?
Well, I'm saddened to learn about the abuses that occurred, and I think that the report that was issued out of England with the clinic in England and how they began these dangerous procedures, and then the referrals to their clinic for this mutilation increased exponentially to the point that they were creating victims on an enormous scale, and it became unmanageable and even traumatized some of the staff that worked at the clinic in England. I think that the evidence here in Missouri is going to largely comport with that experience in England, and so again, it's important to shine the light of truth on this and make it transparent so that we can ensure this never happens in the future.
Final question for you. Just got about 45 seconds left, General Bailey, but you've been focused on these clinics with the gender mutilation of children, experimental drugs, but you've also been focused on Planned Parenthood as well. Some are saying the Republican Party should kind of moderate and back away from the sanctity of life and these social issues, that they're a political liability. What would you say to that?
I am never going to surrender or retreat from my protection of children and protection of life, to include the unborn.
Well, and we're grateful that you're in the position that you're in, and you have exemplified that fight for life in your role. So thanks so much for your work, and thanks for joining us to discuss this good news out of Missouri today.
Thanks for having me on, Tony. I appreciate it.